Welcome, everyone. Today, we're diving into the history of North Korea, a country with a complex past, known for its strict regime, military strength, and a series of leaders who shaped it. Let's journey through North Korea's story, from its foundation in 1948 to its present-day status on the global stage. Japanese occupation and the Korean division 1946 to 1953. Let's start our journey in the early 20th century, when Korea was under Japanese occupation, a time marked by hardship and resistance. Japan's annexation of Korea in 1910 reshaped Korean society. The Japanese government imposed strict controls, erasing Korean culture and language in an attempt to assimilate Korea into the Japanese Empire. This period of control sowed the seeds of resistance and nationalism, movements that would influence Korea's future leaders. With the end of World War II in 1945 and Japan's defeat, Korea gained freedom from Japanese rule, but quickly fell into the sphere of influence of the world's emerging superpowers. The Korean peninsula was divided along the 38th parallel, a decision made by the Allies, with the Soviet Union controlling the north and the United States overseeing the south. As Cold War tensions grew, this temporary division solidified. In 1948, under Soviet guidance, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea (DPRK) was established in the north, led by a young communist revolutionary, Kim Il-sung. Kim was chosen by the Soviets not only for his ideological alignment, but also because of his wartime resistance against Japanese forces. This positioned him as a hero of Korean independence and, in the eyes of many North Koreans, a legitimate leader. Tensions between North and South grew rapidly, each side intent on reunifying the peninsula under its own system. These tensions eventually led to the Korean War in 1950. This war, one of the Cold War's first major conflicts, saw extensive international involvement, with China and the Soviet Union backing the North and a United Nations coalition, primarily the US, supporting the South. Although the war ended in 1953 with an armistice, no peace treaty was signed, leaving North and South Korea technically still at war. Rebuilding and the rise of Juche ideology 1953 to 1970. Post-war North Korea was a devastated nation. Cities, villages, and infrastructure lay in ruins. But Kim Il-sung was determined to build a new, self-reliant nation. This period was when Juche, North Korea's state ideology, began to take shape. Juche, which translates to self-reliance, emphasized North Korea's independence from foreign influence and its ability to stand on its own. Under Juche, North Korea's economy was directed toward heavy industry and military buildup. North Korea was initially successful in these efforts. The state pushed rapid industrialization, and the economy grew, supported by aid from the Soviet Union and China. Kim Il-sung also established a cult of personality, centralizing his image as the great leader and portraying him as a fatherly figure dedicated to the well-being of North Koreans. During this time, the government enacted strict control over information, portraying North Korea as an island of prosperity and peace surrounded by a world of enemies. The cult of personality around Kim Il-sung was solidified through state propaganda, education, and public life, establishing a deep reverence for the leader. Economic stagnation and military prioritization 1970 to 1994. In the 1970s, North Korea faced new challenges. Economic growth began to slow, partly due to the limitations of a highly centralized, state-controlled economy. While the government had initially succeeded in promoting heavy industry, limited resources, inefficient production, and an overemphasis on military spending started to take a toll. Kim Il-sung responded by prioritizing military spending, launching what would later become known as the military-first approach. North Korea's reliance on military strength as a symbol of resilience was partly inspired by the country's fear of invasion or foreign interference. However, this prioritization came at the expense of the people's living conditions, as resources were diverted away from consumer goods and other necessities. Dependence on the Soviet Union and China deepened during this period. North Korea relied on these allies for oil, machinery, and trade. The global oil crises of the 1970s further strained North Korea's economy, pushing the country closer to economic isolation. When the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, North Korea lost a vital source of aid, further exacerbating its economic woes. The stage was set for the hardships that would define the following decades. The famine and nuclear ambitions 1994 to 2011. In 1994, Kim Il-sung passed away, and his son, Kim Jong-il, inherited leadership of a struggling nation. The 1990s were an especially harsh time for North Korea. Natural disasters, including floods, severely impacted agricultural production. Combined with poor state planning and limited foreign assistance, these disasters led to a devastating famine, sometimes referred to as the Arduous March. During this period, Kim Jong-il introduced Songun, or military first policy, officially placing the needs of the military above all else. Even as people faced severe food shortages, the government continued to channel resources into the military. Reports from defectors and international organizations indicated widespread starvation, with estimates suggesting hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people perished during the famine. Despite these challenges, North Korea pressed on with its nuclear ambitions, seeking to develop a deterrent against foreign powers. By 2006, North Korea conducted its first nuclear test, signaling its entry into the global stage as a nuclear-armed state. This development heightened global tensions and led to a series of sanctions aimed at curbing the country's nuclear program. However, North Korea's leadership viewed nuclear weapons as essential for national security and regime survival, making them reluctant to abandon their efforts. The Kim Jong-un era, modernization and diplomacy 2011 present. Following Kim Jong-il's death in 2011, his youngest son, Kim Jong-un, took power. Kim Jong-un faced the task of consolidating his rule and addressing North Korea's myriad challenges, from economic struggles to international isolation. Known for his aggressive military posturing, Kim Jong-un continued nuclear tests, even as he introduced limited economic reforms and modernization efforts. One notable shift under Kim Jong-un has been his willingness to engage in high-profile diplomatic efforts. Between 2018 and 2019, Kim met with South Korean President Moon Jae-in and U.S. President Donald Trump, marking a rare period of engagement with the outside world. These meetings stirred hope for denuclearization and peace on the Korean peninsula. However, these talks ultimately stalled, as North Korea remained firm on retaining its nuclear arsenal. Domestically, the regime has introduced limited market activities, allowing North Koreans some economic flexibility. However, these markets operate under strict state control, and North Korea remains one of the world's most tightly controlled societies, with severe restrictions on information, travel, and expression. Closing reflections. As we've seen, North Korea's history reflects a continuous tension between isolation and resilience. From its foundation under Kim Il-sung's strict communist vision to Kim Jong-un's era of cautious modernization and nuclear brinkmanship, the Kim dynasty has maintained power through strict control and military strength. This strategy has kept North Korea isolated from much of the world, but it has also helped the regime survive. Looking ahead, questions remain about North Korea's future. Will it continue down a path of self-reliance and confrontation, or could there be opportunities for a more open and peaceful relationship with the global community? For now, North Korea remains an enigmatic country, a place of secrecy and speculation. Whatever happens, the history of North Korea reminds us of the resilience and complexities that shape nations. Thank you for listening and joining me on this journey through North Korea's history. If you enjoyed this session, please share your thoughts and feel free to suggest topics you'd like to explore next time.